Welcome to Global Hunting Solutions Podcast. My guest, Skipper Wilson. I'll be your
Hello.
host, Travis Wier. Skipper, why don't you tell us a little bit about your hunting career, how it started, where you're from, all that good stuff.
Okay. I grew up in Northwest Oklahoma, and I think, I didn't really grow up around a ton of hunters per se. So I think I caught the itch a little bit later than most. I started really hunting when I was about 15 years old, and I kind of was self-taught back in the days.
What kind of hunting were you doing? Quail hunting or deer hunting or what?
I did a lot of quail, dove. I did whitetail. And then of course I fished a lot too.
Fly
A lot of
fish.
bass fishing now, spinner reel fishing. Really didn't get into the fly fishing scene until I moved to Colorado about 20 years ago, and that's
Okay.
when I picked up the fly rod.
So how old were you when you shot your first deer?
I think I was 16. It didn't happen my first couple of seasons, 16 or 17. It didn't happen my first couple of seasons. Because one thing about where I grew up was it was not an easy place to hunt. There wasn't a whole lot of public land around. About everywhere you looked, it was all privately owned and farms and ranches and that sort of stuff. So
Was this by Woodward?
it was, yeah. Out by Woodward, there's very little
Mainly
land out there.
Chinook country.
Yeah. And actually, when I first started hunting, I started hunting with a friend of mine, and his dad had a bunch of land, and we hunted that land is how I really got into the good stuff. When I first started, it was like I was completely lost. And
Sure.
thankfully, he took me under his wing and kind of showed me his dad's land where there were a lot more deer. But that was, I was 16 or 17 when I shot my first.
So primarily
Whitetail.
private land hunting with a rifle.
Mm-hmm.
No shotgun.
I did a little bit of black powder hunting, but yeah, my first few seasons was rifle only.
Cool. Well, Skipper and I, we're up in Colorado now. We live here. I live part-time. Skipper lives here full-time. And we've been hunting and fishing together for a number of years. We've taken a couple of pretty good trips together. Last fall, we did a helicopter hunt together. We did that in Texas. It was a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh, so much fun! I'm ready to do it again.
Yeah, so we met, I don't know, 15, 16 years ago up here in Colorado. And we've kind of been palling around ever since, doing some hunting and fishing together, a lot of fly fishing together. Like I say, Skipper's from Oklahoma. And when did you move to Colorado? What year?
2006, I moved out here, and just kind of straight into the ski bum scene, if you will. So I really focused on that my first few years, and I wasn't hunting, I wasn't fishing, and a couple of years in, and I'm like, what am I missing in my life? And turns out it was hunting and fishing, getting back into that. And
So you went from totally private land to now you're mainly all public land.
yeah, and I can assure you that there's the hunting from Oklahoma to Colorado. It's two different sports.
Oh, absolutely. The terrain,
Big
the
country.
public land, that's a whole
Yeah.
different deal, and the draws and
Mm-hmm.
all that good stuff. So when you started hunting in Colorado, is that when you started bow hunting?
Yep, I started bow hunting. Oh, I think it was around 2009, 2010 season. And again, I did, I've always been one to try to figure things out on my own. And I have found that it's a lot less headaches if you find somebody that's been through it before you.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about that. So when you started bow hunting in Colorado on public land, were you hunting compound or were you doing traditional back then?
Compound hunting for the first several years. And like I said, just trying to figure it out on my own in a new area and first time bow hunter. I didn't bow hunt back in Oklahoma. Fell in love with it, but man, it was extremely difficult, and learned a lot of lessons. Didn't take any animals. Didn't take any elk for the first few years. And I actually hiked probably 350 million miles those first few years.
Were you just doing it on your own, or were you hunting with someone?
I had one buddy that he was also new to the sport. I brought him in kind of. He was interested when I told him what I was up to. The next year, he got him a bow, and then we walked out in the woods together on very, very long hikes. Is what they turned out to be.
Well, you have to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, that's the truth. I learned a lot in those first couple of seasons up here, and got better every year. Still learning. I mean, it's going to be a constant learn for sure.
We're gonna dive into another episode. Skipper and I hunted Unit 44 up near Vale this year for elk and bear. And so we're going to do a dedicated episode just on Unit 44. Its challenges. It's kind of a special spot in the world. I mean, you've hunted a lot of different areas in Eagle County, Summit County, and Unit 44 was a lot different than all of them.
It definitely was, and I know it's that particular unit is known for big muleys.
Big muleys. So
Yeah.
if you want to tune into that one, that'll be a good one for you guys to watch. Unit 44 is, I think it's pretty special as far as mule deer are concerned from what we saw. And we're going to hold off and not say too much about it, but we'll leave that for another episode. So let's go back to our timeline. So now you're hunting public land versus private with a compound bow. Then eventually you switched over to traditional somewhere in the mix. I don't know why you did that.
Yeah, I took my first elk and I thought, what could make this a lot harder on myself? I'm always up for a good challenge, and the success rate of getting one with a compound bow, man, I think it's, don't quote me, but I feel like it's around like 7 or 8% with a compound bow.
I think at best 7 or 8%.
Yeah,
That's
and
pretty.
so I thought, you know what? I need to make this more difficult. So I decided to give longbow a shot, and so that basically cuts your distance in half of how close you need to get to the elk to let an arrow fly.
I mean, some of these guys now, I'm seeing these guys shooting 100, 110, 120 yards with a compound bow, and they're putting them like this. So
it's crazy.
You jump back to a recurve, and that's a whole different ballgame. You're talking 30, 40 yards max.
Yeah. If it's a big bull, obviously the target's a little bigger, and you can shoot.
And I think that's something else that we need to look into is maybe doing a podcast in the future about some of those custom recurves that you talk about.
Yeah, there's some really good ones.
There's
around.
some really
even
pretty bows
made in Colorado as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good story for the future. My background is I started hunting when I was young in Texas, private land, same thing, high-powered rifle with my family. My dad and my grandfather took me, and we rode around the truck and we shot whitetails and mule deer. And I did very little quail hunting. We just didn't have a lot of quail when we were hunting in West Texas at that time. So it was just primarily whitetail and mule deer back in the day in West Texas. And then I went on to college and was going to be a wildlife biologist, and started my hunting career in 1991. And we can leave that for another episode as well. That's a pretty long story, but I was a founder of Texas Specialty Hunts. I founded that company, and it later evolved into helicopter pig hunting, and it led into an international hunting business. And so here I am today. And now we're launching a new company, Global Hunting Solutions, and it's a luxury hunting business that is going to redefine the way we hunt. Traditionally, we've always had our clients be a little apprehensive about traveling abroad with the uncertainties of airport and travel and accommodations and guides. And so we're going to clear all that up. We're going to make it very easy, very defined, and we're going to focus primarily just on luxury travel. And so back to your story, then you started hunting with a bow, and then you started fishing a lot.
Yeah. So I started snowboarding first, and then I kind of got the itch to pick up hunting and fishing. And luckily, I did have a good buddy that I was working with at the time that was a fly fishing guide in the summers, and he helped us in the wintertime, and then he would go to his fly fishing gig every summer. And I told him that I was really interested in learning how to do it, and he was gracious enough to take me under his wing again and show me the ins and outs of fly fishing and get me going. And we've been friends ever since, and that really started my love for fly fishing. And while I love fishing for trout, I'll never get enough of it. I have a real passion for saltwater fly fishing and traveling, seeing the world, and chasing a lot different species, bigger species.
And we did some of that in 2024.
Mm-hmm.
We Skip and I traveled to some places and did some saltwater fly fishing, and we'll talk more about that later as well. I mean, we not only have a lot of knowledge as far as hunting goes, we also have vast knowledge about saltwater fly fishing, river fishing, trout fishing, pretty much it. I mean, we make our own rods and tie our own flies, and so we can, depending on what you guys want to hear, you can just leave some comments if you want to hear more about the saltwater fly fishing. It's pretty good, man. It's a pretty good gig. It's fun.
Yeah, I like chasing different species just because it takes a lot of different techniques to chase them, and sometimes you're in a boat, sometimes you're flats fishing. It's there's a lot of variables to it. It's a real challenge, but I've definitely been in love with saltwater fly fishing for a long time now.
Yeah, and like if they want to hear about it, just drop us some comments. And if you want to hear about some rooster fishing um, down in Mexico, we can tell you about that. We've got some good trips planned for the fall and winter down in Mexico for various species. And then we did some stuff on the Texas coast last year as well for redfish, sight fishing for redfish. So if you guys want to talk fishing, we can do that too. So that kind of brings us up to pretty much now, kind of where we're at. Um, Now you're just traditionally archery. You're not doing any compound stuff.
I've kind of toyed with the idea of getting back into the compound hunting game, just because I over the years of the recurve and the longbow, I've missed out on some really big bulls, and it's
I mean, I think it's
it's
hard
not getting
enough.
any easier.
The pressure's more.
The
There's
pressure's
more
more,
hunters up
yeah,
here.
yeah.
Vehicles are better,
Hmm.
accessibility is better, the equipment's better. So the average bow hunter can be successful now
Yeah.
because we have better equipment.
Hmm.
The
I mean,
calling's
when you're
easier.
shooting out to 70 yards, I mean, I don't know how many times I've been within 70 yards of a big bull and
You need
could have
half the
let an arrow
distance.
fly and just couldn't close the gap to 30, 40 yards.
So yeah, I think it's changed the game. I think the technology now is so much better, and the hunters are better just because of a lot of the equipment we have. Onyx Hunt. I mean,
Hmm.
geez,
A
what
lot of
would we do
technology.
without Onyx?
Hmm.
I mean, I use that in the helicopter world all the time.
Yeah.
That's how I fly.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, that's it. I mean, that kind of brings us up to date, and we can leave it there.
Cool.